Hello, everyone. I'm going to call to order the Fairfield Zoning Board of Appeals meeting dated March 6th, 2025. First thing we're going to do is our administrative session. We would like to approve the minutes of our meeting from Thursday, February 6th, 2025. May I have a motion to approve?
Brian moves.
And a second?
Jane seconds.
And a vote? Yay.
By acclamation, aye.
Everyone? Yay. Jay?
Aye.
Okay, approved. Second, I'd like to approve the secretary fees. Can I have a motion to approve? Second?
Jane seconds.
And a vote?
Yay.
Yay.
Yes.
Okay. Now going to open the public hearing. So I'm going to read a statement. So the zoning board of appeals meeting will now come to order. First, when a matter is first called, the applicant should give his or her name or agent that will present the case. At this time, originals of any petition should be given to the clerk, Jody. Copies of that petition should then be distributed to the board members. After the applicant's presentation, all interested persons in favor of the application will come forward and speak. After those in favor have spoken, those in opposition will be heard. The applicant or his or her agent may then address the comments made by those in opposition. Second, this meeting is being recorded as required by state law. It's important that we're able to understand the recording. Therefore, only one person may speak at a time, and anyone who speaks must come forward and speak clearly, as our listening devices are located in the ceiling of our room, and give his or her name and address. We welcome the comments of all interested persons, but we must exercise discretion in making sure that your comments are on point. And if you're too far off point, we reserve the right to restrict your comments at any time. Third, applicants and interested persons may remain in attendance after the hearing to find out what was decided, or you may call the zoning office tomorrow morning to find out. Fourth, an application for a waiver, if it is granted, the waiver is not valid if the notice is not recorded. The applicant must bring a check in the amount of $60 made out to the town of Fairfield to the zoning office on Wednesday or later following the meeting for proper recording of the notice of filing. Any waiver involving construction requires an as-built prior to an issuance of a certificate of zoning compliance and a certificate of occupancy. Okay, today, normally we hear all of the items on our agenda. We close the hearing, we then vote. Today, since we have two applications that should be quicker, we're going to listen to those two applicants. We're then going to close the hearing, we're going to vote, then we're going to open up the public hearing, hear the next application, and then vote after that. Okay? Right. So I'm ready for we have a continued docket, which is 297 Pine Creek, map 34, but we're going to start with the general docket. I'm going to say,
Here.
yeah, it's right here.
Oh.
So we had in our docket 166 Pine Creek Avenue, and that's been continued to 4/3/25, our next meeting. I'm not sure if I need to read what that application is. All right.
I usually do, just in case, like somebody knew it by the address or something like that, if they're here or online.
So this was 166 Pine Creek Avenue, map 238, parcel 35, petition of Natalia and Kevin Coynier for a variance of the zoning regulations, section 2.8.1.1, to expand a non-conforming dwelling on a parcel with two dwellings. Permission to construct additions to a non-conforming dwelling possession premises BD zone. So that's been continued to our next meeting. We now go to our first item on the agenda, which is 5 Westbrook Place. Hi, map 30, parcel 154. Petition of Lana and Matthew Kaplan for a variance of the zoning regulations, section 5.2.4, to reduce the street line setback from 30 feet, currently 29.6 feet, proposing 24.7 feet. Permission to construct a front one-story addition premises A zone.
Hello,
Just
Alana-
name and address first.
Alana Kaplan, 5 Westbrook Place, Fairfield, obviously. The hardship we're listing on our application is that we are located on a cul-de-sac at the end, and our home has a larger easement than the adjacent properties on our street because it's where it gets wide to make a circle. Additionally, the back of our property is the Rooster River. So when the house was constructed, it was constructed closer to the front of the easement than to today's conforming standards. We are looking to create an enclosed entryway, which is the same footprint as are the existing front steps now, which is 5 feet deep by 7 feet wide, then just putting a single step in front of that. On a more personal note, the reason I am putting my family through all of this is because our front door opens directly into the staircase landing, and it's just like shoes, and children walk down the stairs and trip over the shoes. And it's chaos that my brain can no longer handle. Thank you. Let me know if you have any questions.
Okay, thank you very much.
Do I sit back down there?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Is there anyone here? Oh, I'm sorry. Does the board have any questions? No?
No.
No? Okay, no questions from the board. Is there anyone here from the public who wishes to speak in favor of this application? Online? No? Is there anyone here wishing to speak not in favor of this application? Here, online? Okay, seeing none, hearing none, we are going to close this application. Okay, next, we're going on to 24 Chapel Hill Drive, map 7, parcel 197. Petition of Vincent and Kristen Tazo for a variance to zoning regulations, section 5.2.5 to increase the lot coverage from 15%, currently 15.67%, proposing 17.34%. Permission to construct a rear deck with stairs, premises R2 zone.
Hello, Jeremy Lamolt, contractor for the job.
And your address?
My home address,
Yep.
35 Juanetta Road, Trumbull.
Okay, please.
And the hardship we have is they have an undersized lot that slopes from the left side down to the right. They also have the existing deck that's there now, which is in disrepair. So in order to do it, they just want to make a little more living space on the outside. Got about 5 feet now. We want to go out to about 12.
Okay, does the board have any questions of the applicant?
You know what the square footage is going from and to?
Yeah, so what we're gonna do is the finish is gonna end up being 12 by 20.
From,
What they have now?
Yeah.
Right now, they have about 15 by 5.
so 75 to 250.
Yep.
Okay, no other questions, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Is there anyone here or online who'd like to speak for this application? Seeing none, is there anyone here or online to speak against this application? Okay, seeing none, we are going to close this application. And now, like I said, because we only have one more item on the agenda, we are going to close the public hearing. And we are going to vote and have a discussion on 5 Westbrook Place and 24 Chapel, okay? So I'm gonna read again. The first item we're considering is 5 Westbrook Place, map 30, parcel 154, petition of Lana and Matthew Kaplan for a variance to the zoning regulation. Section 5.2.4, to reduce the sideline setback from 30 feet, currently 29.6 feet, proposing 24.7 feet. Permission to construct a front one-story addition premises A zone. Can I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
And may I have a second motion? Second. Okay, thank you. And discussion.
It's a pre-existing non-conforming lot with obstacles on the backside, so.
Very simple, straightforward.
Like then we'll take it to a vote. Okay,
Yes.
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 and yes, that's approved. Next, 24 Chapel Hill Drive, map 7, parcel 197. Petition of Vincent and Kristen Tazo for a variance to zoning regulations, section 5.2.5 to increase the lot coverage from 15%, currently 15.67%, proposing 17.34%, permission to construct a rear deck with stairs, premises R2 zone. I have a motion to approve.
So moved.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Okay, discussion.
They have the pre-existing non-conforming lot is smaller than the zone. So, the percentage is in keeping with the proportion that the other lots in the neighborhood have.
Definitely
Topography.
an undersized lot.
Topography.
Any other discussion?
No. Give me 2 seconds here. Oh.
Okay, we can go to a vote.
Yes.
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 Yes, that's everyone, yes, thank you. Okay. We are going to go back to a public meeting. Public.
Just looking around.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you, yeah, you definitely,
You guys are all
we
set.
didn't want to keep you. Do you want to go?
Yeah, so I just wanted to state for the record.
Wait, let me open the public hearing, okay? So I'm gonna call to order the zoning board of appeals public meeting. Okay, please, Katie.
Okay, so for the record, it was requested last month by the applicants of the next case that I recuse myself. I spoke with quite a few people regarding that question, including the former chairman of this board. And everyone was in agreement that there was absolutely no reason for me to recuse myself. I felt very comfortable making an impartial and unbiased decision. However, exercising an extreme overabundance of caution, I will recuse myself from this next case.
Thank you. All right, now Harold's gonna step in,
Come on, Harold.
be our 5th member of the board for this public.
Holy hurt. Be a warm seat.
I did. Quickest meeting ever.
Breaking my records all over.
Okay, I'm going to, so now we're going to bring up our continued docket item number 8. It was number 8 from last week, so I guess we still call it number 8.
Yep.
297 Pine Creek, map 234, parcel 258A, petition of Deborah Judelson to reverse or modify a decision of the zoning administrator, premises BD zone. And as a reminder, and we discussed this before it was continued, when the board wants to ask questions, this will be the one and only time we can talk to our zoning enforcement officer, because once we close the hearing and we go to our voting, we cannot. Okay. You weren't here last time. Okay,
Yes.
all right.
Excuse me, I just.
Share my screen. Can I share my screen?
Good.
Says someone else is sharing?
That would be me. I guess I can turn it off then.
Well, maybe you'll have to turn it on if this doesn't work. Thank you.
Turn it off or try it.
Okay, that worked.
Yes, right, because I saw,
I'll turn it back on.
I've looked them over.
date. We haven't received anything.
Yes, we have. It came yesterday at 4 o'clock. Yeah, it's on there.
See.
It's actually on the
It's already been.
patients here.
Oh,
Yeah.
Because I think,
Mr. Decker,
Yes,
the email that you got from Garcia and Milas,
Yes.
do you already distribute it?
I did. I put
Thank
it
you.
online.
Okay, I made copies just in case.
Thank you. Or,
No, no,
from
thank you.
yesterday, all the documents, correct?
No, something he was sent from his office today.
Yeah, the chairperson got it.
The chairperson got
She
it.
did.
Do you want me to give it to everybody?
No, it's not necessary. Thank you.
Well, something else.
Ready to hand them out?
I can get you guys copies if you want.
Well, she has them.
Has them.
Why don't you have them?
Ms. Juleson, if you have them, you can hand them out.
Yeah, thank you. Have it, so everyone has.
All have the same thing.
Harold, if that's the case, just ask. Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I already have a copy. Yes, we have copies. Thank you.
My name is Deborah Jodelson. Are you ready, Bruce?
Yeah. Plug it in.
Okay, I'll just
You
wait.
get it?
No, I'll just wait. My name is Deborah Judelson. I am the property owner of 297 Pine Creek Avenue, Fairfield, Connecticut. I have appealed the Fairfield Zoning Enforcement Officer, ZEO's October 10, 2024 issuance of zoning compliance for a certificate of occupancy related to permit PZ 240004. The permit for the new two-car garage with a above home office, the structure, for the owner of 282 Pine Creek Avenue and built on the lot adjacent to my home. This appeal was scheduled to be heard on February 6, 2025, and the presentation was commenced on such date. However, it was interrupted by the chairman rushing out of the hearing room, accompanied by the ZEO for a private consultation off the record. It was then announced that the hearing would need to be continued because Ms. Davis and her lawyer were entitled to be present. Sorry. As board member Brian Avalon pointed out, this was a meeting with notice, and she did have the right to be present just as any other interested person, but that she had chosen of her free will not to attend and not to have her counsel present at the hearing. Indeed, the activity that will be described that occurred within the days prior to the hearing demonstrated an acute awareness that it was occurring on the scheduled date. Even beyond Jacqueline, AKA Jackie Davis, having noticed and been aware of the meeting and her choice not to appear in person or by counsel, there was no indication that she wasn't already present remotely on the Zoom connection and or in contact with board member Katie O'Grady. For the prior 7 presentations, Katie O'Grady's phone was not on the table in front of her, and there was limited private discussion among her and the chairman and the ZEO. Once our presentation commenced, Katie O'Grady took out her phone, was tapping on it frequently as if texting someone, presumably Jackie Davis. And there was a constant private discussion among her, the chairman, and the ZEO. The Katie O'Grady texting followed the same pattern we had observed when we had appealed the HVAC certificate of zoning compliance. We were present for that appeal, and I observed Katie O'Grady would be texting and looking at us and texting and looking at us. After discussion of whether or not the appeal could be continued to another date to allow participation by Jacqueline, AKA Jackie Davis, and her counsel notwithstanding that she had chosen not to be present, the ZBA voted to do so. It turned out, however, that somehow the recording of the meeting had been turned off for this discussion. And so it was turned back on just to repeat the vote and to put it in the record. Because of the month that has elapsed since this presentation was started, and the fact that the record of the prior meeting was not complete, particularly if the recording of the Zoom call was not preserved despite our prompt request to do so, we are starting this presentation again from the beginning. As set forth in the appeal application, the structure was to be constructed pursuant to Jacqueline, AKA Jackie Davis, September 12th, 2023 variance application, the variance application. The variance application and corresponding appeal are Exhibit B to my appeal application. On October 20, 2023, the Zoning Board of Appeal granted Jackie Davis's variance application with the condition that the structure will be maintained as approved through the plans and cannot be utilized or occupied as a dwelling. This is in Exhibit B to my appeal application. The variance application for the structure sought changes to the Town of Fairfield's Beach District zoning regulations as follows. Section 1114.1 to allow a detached accessory structure to contain finished livable floor area, plumbing fixtures, and heat. Section 1110 to increase the allowable lot coverage from 20%, presently 20%, to 25.4%. And Section 1113.1 to reduce the minimum setback from the center line of the street for a lot bounded by Long Island Sound from 45 feet, presently 35.7 feet, to 18.1 feet. The plans submitted with the variance application included drawings A1 and A2 prepared by Fine Home Design LLC, registered to Lynn Halquist, neither is licensed. For Jacqueline, AKA Jackie Davis, showing right, rear, left, and front elevations, cross-section, foundation plan, and second floor plan. Jacqueline Davis's survey depicting proposed two-story building, two-car garage with finished space above of 24 by 24 feet, 576 square feet. Jackie Davis submitted an as-built survey by Land Surveying Services LLC dated 8/27/24 to the ZEO, the Jane as-built. The Jane as-built is attached as Exhibit 4, which is up there. Can you go to the second page? Second page of the Exhibit 4. That's. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. The Jane. I'm about to get there. Sorry. Yeah. So that's the Jane as-built. And it should be shown with the dimensions I just mentioned. The Jane as-built is clearly erroneous on its face, and as confirmed by John Paul Garcia and Associates. And this is Exhibit number 7. And then also the same dimensions are confirmed in a letter of dimensions, Exhibit 8, which is signed by John Paul Garcia. And Exhibit 10, which show the portions of the building in the setbacks, Exhibit 10. And Exhibit 14, JPG signed color slat drawing. Okay, so these are all sort of a basis under which we are objecting. Just one day prior to the scheduled hearing date for this appeal on 2/5/25, Jackie Davis submitted a new as-built survey revised to show a drainage trench alleged to have been in place on 10/24/24. It's called the revised as-built, and it's Exhibit 25. Go to the bottom. Thank you. I will point out the serious questions about the revision date placed on this survey based on substantial extrinsic contemporaneous evidence that the trench did not exist at all on that date or in the form depicted even as of today. I will also note in passing that the distance from the town baseline to the structure, which was already overstated by Jane at 18 feet when compared to the John Paul Garcia certified data, it was increased in this one from 18 feet to 18.1 feet, the exact dimension needed to comply with the variance. As supported by the substantial evidence provided in this memorandum, the ZEO erroneously issued zoning compliance for permit PZ 24-004 because the structure exceeds and materially deviates from the approved variance application and otherwise materially fails to comply with the Fairfield zoning regulations, as extended by variances granted. Preliminary matters. Many of the terms that will be discussed tonight, such as lot coverage, accessory structure, and setbacks, require a determination of what the lot under consideration is. The term lot is defined in section 31.2.20 of the Fairfield zoning regulations as a parcel of land which is owned separately from any adjoining parcel or parcels as evidenced by deed or deeds or maps recorded on the land records of the town, as can be seen in Exhibit 1, and the second page of Exhibit 1, Schedule A, yeah. Okay. Sorry, let me just grab this. This is the deed to Jackie Davis from Pierce, her mother, for 282 Pine Creek Avenue. And if I will read, it says, northerly by the highway, Pine Creek Avenue, 40 feet. So that means that the property stops at Pine Creek Avenue. It doesn't cross over the road. So this is also true of the deed to Jackie Davis's mother, which has a similar legal description, Exhibit 2. Okay, again, this says by the highway, Pine Creek Avenue, 40 feet. Again, the property doesn't extend over Pine Creek Avenue. So accordingly, even if Jackie Davis owns the garage parcel as she represented to the board, a claim for which we have found no support, despite diligent examination, it would not be part of the same lot as 282 Pine Creek Avenue for the purposes of the regulations. This is consistent with the assessor's record, Exhibit 3. Which is the bottom of that page, they're circled, and it lists the land units as 8,614 square feet. That show the total square footage of 282 Pine Creek Avenue equal to 8,614 square feet, not the 10,631 square feet used for the lot coverage calculation on her survey. Exhibit 4. At the bottom, it's actually in the middle on the right. So if you go to the right and then go down, I'll show it.
You want the, where,
Where it says 6,000, there, where it says 10,631. So the, go to the right. Right, go down. In that middle section, sorry. All right, so you can see that it's listed as having 10,631 square feet, which was used for the lot coverage calculation on her survey. It shows it. One obvious consequence of this conclusion is that the garage is not an accessory structure, since an accessory use is required to be located on the same lot. According to 31.2.2, a use customarily incidental and subordinate to the principal use of a building or property and located on the same lot as said building or use. Another consequence of this fact is that the lot coverage must be measured with respect to the lot alone, number 2. It's interesting that in asking for an increase of lot coverage to 25.4%, Mr. Fallon represented to this board, it should be noted that the main dwelling located on the portion of the lot bordering Long Island Sound is compliant with the current 20% coverage requirement, and no increased coverage on that portion of the lot is requested. He seemingly put such reliance on this point that he later stated, "It should first be noted as previously referenced that the portion of the lot bordered by Long Island Sound and where the principal dwelling is located is compliant with the 20% coverage provision." Fact is that the coverage on the 282 Pine Creek lot only met the 20% requirement by adding to the total area of this lot the approximately 1,527 square feet of the parcel across the street. Considering the lot which is included in her deed on the south side of Pine Creek Avenue alone, which is what Mr. Fallon was referring to, and based solely on the dimensions of land surveying services for all measures of south of Pine Creek Avenue, the lot coverage for the dwelling is 23.4%, or 2121 square feet, and the total lot on the other side of the road of 9,104 square feet. Not the 10,000, the math is the 10,631 total claim for both sides, less the 1,527 for the parcel on the north side of Pine Creek, yields 9,104 square feet. In other words, he was double counting the land on the northerly side of the street to support both the dwelling and the proposed new garage. The basis for overturning the ZEO's issuance of the certificate of zoning compliance. As described below, there are numerous reasons why the completed construction and the ultimate use did not qualify to receive a certificate of zoning compliance. Any one of the items discussed below would be sufficient on its own for the ZEO to have withheld the certificate of compliance. But the sheer number of Jackie Davis's zoning violations overlooked by the ZEO is overwhelming. The as-built lot coverage substantially exceeds the amount authorized by variance. Section 1110 of the regulations allows 20% lot coverage based on the false premise that the two parcels were owned by Jackie Davis and joined together. This would be 2,126 square feet, all of which was previously used. Again, also based on the false premise that the two parcels were owned by Jackie Davis and joined together, the ZBA variance allowed for the garage structure an additional 576 square feet to a total of 2,702 square feet, 25.4% of the 10,631 square feet. However, even based on the false premise that the two parcels are joined together and owned by Jackie Davis, the as-built lot coverage is approximately 2,898 square feet, which is 27.3%. The additional nearly 200 square feet of lot coverage on this tiny parcel is composed of the following items. What I'd like to do at this point is to, sorry, I have it up here, I think, yeah. Mark this out, so.
Yes,
Thank you, that's my last one.
fine, thank you.
Could I borrow one of them? Okay, I'm sorry, I thought I had printed out more. Yeah, okay. Yeah, yeah,
Put it in the record.
sorry about that.
See the picture. I don't know.
Okay, so. So.
Your cell phone?
That's
not mine, that's
yours. Sorry,
That's okay.
it's finished, sorry. Okay, so what I would like to sort of briefly just mention is this was taken very recently, I think it was yesterday, from one of the cameras at the house. And I guess I want you to get a sense of how enormous this is on the lot. There's some other things that are important to note. The mother's car, which is always parked with where I've shown it. And one of the arguments Mr. Fallon made was that, sorry, I'm really having trouble today. One of the arguments that he made was that the mother needed to have a covered garage, and she has not ever parked in the garage. Then there also is an office worker's car, which we pointed to in the parking area, which is of course why they made that so wide. And then in front of it is the mother's second car parked there, so that there are cars parked in this space right adjacent to the property. Then there's an air conditioner, which we will go and discuss also a little bit in the context of lot coverage. And you can see actually in front of our driveway and down in front here, what's happened is that the drainage from that lot, which is now overburdened with the remaining amount of grade that's left, is flooding in front of this little sort of gray area in front of my driveway. And so we're getting flooding already from that. And behind that property in the back, which is the front of our yard, because our yard is where we have the garage right, the driveway right here, but the house is sort of this garage that Jackie Davis built is actually notched into our property, and it's really, really close. Where she put the air conditioner, and knowingly so, is right next to our master bedroom. So it's really been a problem. And you should just see that this is very large. And although it was claimed to be very attractive, I wouldn't say that is so. And certainly not from that perspective. Okay. The pier-to-pier base of the garage structure was built, sorry.
All right, fine.
I just want to get it back to you so I don't forget. The pier-to-pier base of the garage structure was built slightly larger than approved, 24.1 by 24.1, for a total of 580.8 square feet, or 4.8 square feet larger than approved. The permanent awning, which is part of the front of the structure over the garage door, extends 2.2 feet from the vertical face of the structure into the front yard setback. Exhibit 5, photo of the awning framing. And you can see that here, it's quite secure against the structure. And then you can also see in Exhibit 6, the photo of the awning with sheathing. So it's definitely a part of the structure. There you go. This permanent awning is 24.4 feet, 24 feet 5 inches wide. And Exhibit 7, the JPGA survey. Can you, yes, go down a little more. Yes, a little further. Yeah. So what you can see here is it's not so clear here, but the two double lines at the bonnet, I'm sorry, there's a dotted lines that you can see at the bottom towards the road, and that is the awning. And then also there's a Exhibit 8, which is letter from JPG re the dimensions. So our licensed surveyor signed off on the dimensions. Next exhibit. Thank you. No, that's fine. And so all of the dimensions are in here confirmed by JPGA. And this adds 53.7 square feet of additional lot coverage. The solid apron, which is shown in Exhibit 9. There we, yeah, there we can see it. composed of a combination of concrete and block and asphalt in front of the garage that extends from over the westerly property line to beyond the easterly property line. Again, you can see that in the JPG Exhibit 7 survey. Can you zoom in so that we can see how it goes beyond? So it turns out that the apron installed by Jackie Davis goes beyond the property lines on both sides. Okay. This is an impervious surface, and as such is counted as lot coverage in the beach district. According to the regulations 11.10, it says in part, in calculating lot coverage for new construction, all impervious surfaces shall be included. This combination of asphalt and concrete and block apron adds an additional 131.9 square feet of lot coverage. This impervious surface is described on the Jane As-Built Exhibit 4 as gravel. And you can see that on the right, there's a little right there at the bottom, points to the area in front of the garage and says yes. It is not gravel. The lot area covered by the HVAC mounted on the easterly exterior is shown on the Jane As-Built survey, which is not to scale, Exhibit 4, but has not been correctly measured or counted at all in the lot coverage. As measured by JPGA, the dimensions of the actual dimensions of the externally mounted HVAC are 3.7 feet by 1.4 feet, which adds an additional 5.2 square feet. The actual total lot coverage, as if the garage lot were part of the lot across the street, which is based on, of course, the false and invalid information presented to the town by the applicant, is 27.3%, despite the fact that Jackie Davis was only granted a variance to 25.4%. However, the amount of coverage for the separate garage lot, when properly calculated as a separate lot, started at 0% and became a jaw-dropping 50.6%. The driveway apron, composed of a combination of impervious surfaces, separately violates section 1110 of the regulations, which also states that no paved driveways or walks in excess of 3 feet in width shall be permitted. Exhibit 9, photo of the apron. Yeah, thank you very much. Looking in the normal direction of a driveway, this impervious apron, composed of a combination of asphalt, concrete, and block, extends over 40 feet in width from over the west side of the garage property to over the property line to the east, which is more than 10 times the 3 feet in width allowed. Even if you took a contrary interpretation that would allow the impervious walks of unlimited length and flip your orientation and look at this from the other direction, the width would be 3 feet 2 inches, still more than the permitted amount. The structure does not meet the minimum setbacks from the center of the road and all 3 property lines, the westerly side property line, the easterly side property line, or the rear property line. Looking at Exhibit 10. And that shows the over the property line portions of the structure. You can see that in the front. I'm sorry, over the setback, you're right, sorry. Over the setback, the front one you can see is shaded. The one on the westerly side is shaded, and over in the rear as well, partially, because it's not quite square. Section 11 8.13.1 of the regulations required a minimum setback of structures from the baseline center line of Pine Creek Avenue of 45 feet. There is no exception that would allow awnings, canopies to extend into the setbacks in the beach district. This board granted an extraordinary variance to allow a reduction in the setback of nearly 27 feet to 18.1 feet. The JPG survey, Exhibit 7, shows that the closest point the garage as built is to the center line of Pine Creek Avenue is 15.7 feet. We're not even anywhere near the 18.1 granted, it's 15.7. Exhibit 4, the Jane as-built survey pretends that the awning portion of the garage does not exist and does not show that the permanent awning brings the structure approximately 2.2 feet closer to the baseline, center line of the road. Jane's as-built survey also incorrectly shows the distance from the front face of the garage to the road baseline center line to be 18 feet. Although not correct, it still showed that the as-built structure violated the generous variance given until Mr. Jane realized that he had not shown a large enough setback to comply with the variance, and in his final revised survey, the distance on his revised as-built, which is Exhibit 25, shows it perfect, 18.1, now been changed. There. The JPG survey Exhibit 7 shows the distance between the front, south, easterly corner. I'm sorry, Exhibit 7, sorry. So we looked at, you can see that that's distance is there. The JPGA survey Exhibit 7 shows the distance between the front southeasterly corner of the concrete pier on the southeasterly corner of the garage in Pine Creek baseline center line to be 17.9 feet. The Jane revised as-built trench survey Exhibit 25 shows that either the baseline or the garage has moved 1/10 of a foot since previously measured, but the structure still does not meet the setback requirements since the measure ignores the permanent awning. The setback requirements of section 1113.1 refer to the minimum setback of buildings and structures. There can be no question that the awning is part of the building or structure. See photos Exhibit 5, which I showed you before. The awning framing, it's very tightly attached. And Exhibit 6, the awning with sheathing. In residence districts, section 5.2.4.1 of the regulation provides a broad exception as follows. Marquees, canopies, decks, eaves, chimneys, open fire escapes, and similar projections without projecting walls may project into the area required for setback from property or street line, not more than the following distances. However, the beach district is not one of the residence districts, and it's subject to its own setback rules, section 1111 to 1116 of the regulations, and does not have an exception similar to 5.2.4.1. Consequently, no portion of the structure is permitted to extend into the front or any other setback. And in the case of the subject garage structure, the structure does so by more than 2 feet after taking into account the 27-foot reduction of the normal setback already granted to Jackie Davis by this board. The JPGA survey exhibit. Would you like to continue having your conversation, or can I? Yes, thank you.
Go ahead.
Okay, Exhibit 7, the JPGA survey shows the distance between the closest point of the garage and the road baseline center line to be 15.7 feet. Part of the argument made in support of the 18.1 front setback requested on behalf of Jackie Davis was a claim that the Jackie Davis garage was to be co-planar with the adjacent garage. a prior non-conforming structure. However, the shortest distance between the adjacent garage and the road baseline center line is not 18.1 feet requested. It's actually 18 feet 11 inches. The shortest distance from the Davis garage structure is over 3 feet closer to the Pine Creek Avenue baseline center line than the adjacent garage. The eaves that are also not shown on the Jane, as built, Exhibit 4, what you see is just a 24 by 24 foot square. Also seriously encroach on the front yard setback. But because the awning extends further, the actual distance is not shown. Section 1116 of the regulations requires a rear yard setback of not less than 5 feet. The Jane as-built survey, Exhibit 4, states that this is the case and shows the rear of the garage as being conveniently 5 feet from the rear property line. Once again, so that's Exhibit 4, and you can see on the right corner the convenient location and dimension. Once again, the as-built survey includes only the pier-to-pier dimension of the structure and not any portions of the structure protruding from it, such as the eaves and rakes. As previously stated, there is no exemption similar to 5.2.4.1 for eaves and similar projections such as rakes to be in the setbacks in the beach district. As shown in the JPGA drawings, Exhibit 7, the rakes on the garage structure extend into the rear setback by 13 inches, 1.1 feet, thereby violating section 1116 by 13 inches or 1.1 feet. Section 11.11.2 of the regulations requires a minimum of 5-foot side yard setback for lots of 40 feet width or greater. The table prepared by Land Surveying Services for Davis lists a requirement of 4 feet based on a stated average width of 39.99 feet. This measurement is at best questionable as much as there is no specific width on the lot on the survey that is less than 40 feet. The width as measured both northerly and both at the northerly and southerly ends of the garage parcel on the north side of Pine Creek by JPGA is no less than 40 feet. The sides are shown as straight and the property is described in all of the legal descriptions, including those in the Pierce and Davis deeds and reference maps as 40 feet wide. It appears that this width was first adopted in the survey prepared by Jane in connection with Davis's application to expand the dwelling across the street, where the addition was to be placed as close as 4.3 feet from the westerly boundary and would have violated the setback if the lot were shown to be 40 feet wide. So Mr. Jane came to the rescue and called the width 39.99. However, with respect to this tiny parcel, whether minimum setbacks are 4 feet or 5 feet, the west side setback has been violated. The minimum distance from the westerly pier-to-pier face of the garage to the westerly property line per Jane as-built survey is 5.2, Exhibit 4, as-built survey. Okay, Exhibit 4, please. So the minimum distance from the westerly pier-to-pier face of the garage, according to Jane, is 5.2 feet. Our survey, Exhibit 7, shows that the distance is 5.1 feet. Sorry. When measured to the outer edge of the structure, including overhangs, the distance to the side property line is actually 3 feet 8 inches or 3.7 feet, or 16 inches, 1.3 feet into the setback. Even if one were to suspend disbelief and accept that there is an average lot width of 39.99, as falsely asserted by Jane in all of his so-called surveys on behalf of Jackie Davis and her mother, this would still extend 4 inches into the setback. The structure itself is not the only violation of the side yard setbacks. We need only turn back to the impervious surfaces extending across the front of the driveway. These extend not only into the setback, but also into the neighboring properties. Section 11.11.4 of the regulations provides that the side yard setback rules of section 1111 shall also apply to all structures or surfaces impervious to the passage of water, such as driveways, patios, and similar surfaces. Accordingly, this impervious surface that should not have been allowed at all for having violated 2 other provisions of the zoning ordinance should not have been allowed to encroach on the 5-foot side yard setback on either side of the property. Because Jackie Davis installed her concrete and paver and asphalt apron over the property lines on both sides, she also has violated the setbacks on 297 Pine Creek and the westerly side as well. Sorry. We have owned multiple coastal properties and endured the worst hurricanes and tropical storms that have occurred in Connecticut in our lifetimes, and are well aware of the devastation that results, and that is why we believe that adherence to FEMA guidelines is so important. Davis failed to meet many FEMA requirements as adopted in section 32, flood protection of the Fairfield zoning regulations. These violations also violate the stated conditions imposed by the ZBA as part of the variance to construct a FEMA compliant detached garage, and it will be maintained as approved through the plans submitted to the ZBA, Exhibit 11, Town of Fairfield Notice of Filing. And you can see that what I just read is there. Section 32.1C of the regulations requires that plans shall be designed and certified for flood compliance by a Connecticut registered architect and/or engineer. The only plans filed with respect to the building permit were signed by a with respect to the building permit that were signed by a Connecticut registered architect or engineer were the 2-page foundation plan dated 12/12/23, Exhibit 12. And there are 2 pages of this that are signed by an engineer. Chris. These plans listed a number of FEMA requirements that related to the foundation plan that needed to be met, but did not address many portions of the design and measurements that were the responsibilities of others that I've already said were unlicensed, and did not certify that the overall design would be compliant with the flood regulations. However, the situation is much worse than that because these engineered plans do not represent what was actually built. And there is no updated design or certificate or certification by a Connecticut registered architect or engineer. Among the many changes that affected compliance were the following. Jackie Davis made many material changes to the structure of the garage during construction. One such material change was to change the stair and to move the side door, for which no drawings were submitted, Exhibit 13. If you flip to another one and then go back, it will. If you flip to another one and then go back, sometimes it works.
What do you want to?
Exhibit 13,
That is exhibit 13.
Variance plan, sorry, yep. And exhibit, okay, and exhibit 12, permit plans. And then exhibit, yeah, and you can see already there have been changes. Exhibit 12A, photo of the original door stair arrangement. It's over towards the rear of the structure. And then exhibit 12 B is where it actually was reframed to fit. And then Exhibit 12C, which shows, down, please. I'd like to see the top of the stair. Yes. And here you can see that there's a new structural member, which was not present in any of the engineered plans. As a result, it appears that the original floor framing was no longer structurally sound. To reinforce the second floor after the change, a structural member was installed across the entire width of the structure without any licensed architect or engineer certifying that the reinforcement was adequate to support hurricane or flood forces. You can also see NFIP Technical Bulletin 5, 6.16. 6.1, sorry. Unenclosed stairs and ramps are preferred. Stairs and ramps must be designed and constructed to either resist flood loads and remain in place during floods up to and including the base flood. If this option is selected, the elevated building and its foundation must be designed to resist any flood loads that are transferred from the stairs or ramps to the building, or break away during flood conditions without causing damage to the building. And this is referenced in section 32.5C of the regulations, and you can see this also in the FEMA Technical Bulletin 5, free of obstruction. The structure as built is also 2.6 feet taller than the original plans provided. As you can see in the image that I gave you, it is very massive. Then the original plans provided Exhibit 13 in the approved variance drawings, Exhibit 7. Exhibit 13 we'll start with. It's taller than that. Exhibit 7, the JPGA survey, and all of this information is there in detail. Exhibit 7, the JPGA survey. Exhibit 8, letter from the JPG with all the dimensions. So all of this information is available to confirm what I'm saying. Grade beams were added above grade between the columns in violation of the FEMA rules. Breakaway walls were provided in the originally submitted and approved variance drawings. Exhibit 13, which is the variance drawing, shows that they were breakaway walls. In the permit drawings, the breakaway walls were changed to slats, which would have allowed 70% free of obstruction with respect to the slat spacing alone in order to provide the required 40% overall free of obstruction after taking into account framing and other blockages. And if you see these unsigned plans dated 12/12/23, it says filed with board building permit applicant at page A1, where the slats are described as 3/4 inch by 2.5 inch boards, spacing non-rot material to be used, clear opening exceeds 40%. Exhibit 12, which is the permit with the engineer plans, shows that configuration that I just read to you. Unfortunately, as built, Exhibit 14, that's the slatted drawing that I showed you before, but you can see they're much closer. And if you take and you measure what happens on a best case panel, which without any other obstructions, no doors, no chases, or enclosed staircases, there was only 27% free of obstruction below base flood, before it was subsequently reduced to 0% free of obstruction by blocking the area behind the slats with corrugated plastic. And you can see the corrugated plastic installed by Jackie Davis. 16A. See that? 16B. It was throughout the lower level. 16C. And that's installed behind the slats.
And removed.
Another, excuse me,
I said and removed, as you're aware.
excuse me, would you please allow me to finish and then you may speak.
Checking.
Another violation of section 32, which was a change subsequent to the engineer's drawing, was the mounting of an AC compressor. Exhibit 13. which was approved. Exhibit 13, which is the approved variance drawing. Exhibit 12, you'll see that on none of these approved drawings, not on the permit drawings and not on the approved variance drawings, was there an AC compressor. However, there were engineering drawings submitted by Jackie Davis, Exhibit 18A. This is a crumpled up piece of paper with pink highlighter, which was uploaded under engineering drawings. And there's some annotations here. You can see that the air conditioner isn't to scale. It's not in the proper location. And then in 18B, it's without the annotations, but suffice it to say, it's not correct. And Exhibit 17A is a picture of a contractor, very proud of himself, installed the HVAC. Exhibit 17B is the photo of the HVAC partially installed. It was not included at all in any of the submitted plans. It's on a flimsy bracket without any engineering of the bracket, its attachment, or its location to withstand wind and water forces, as was stated to be required on page 2 of the FEMA standards of the permit plan. So if you look at on the right-hand side of Exhibit 12, there's no HVAC anywhere on any of these drawings. Okay. Another major change affecting flood compliance not reflected in the engineer's drawings was that the required compensatory storage for which a building permit was granted was not installed, and the problem of lack of on-site water detention was exacerbated by adding substantial additional lot coverage from 0% prior to this garage to over 50%. And Exhibit 8 gives you all of those dimensions, which is the certified dimensions by JPG. The building permit / zoning file also does not show that any of these changes were certified for compliance by a Connecticut registered engineer or architect. Section 32(1)(f) of the regulations, HVAC requirements state that any HVAC generator or utility platforms, in addition to being 1 foot above BFE, must also meet the required setbacks and lot coverage requirements of the underlying zone. Mr. Decker has stated that this is not required when a unit is mounted on a bracket instead of a platform, but the term platform is not defined in the regulations and is only otherwise used in connection with a railway platform. The distinction between a bracket and a platform is not obvious when hanging an item off the side of the structure, and neither is the logic behind drawing such a distinction. The only logical interpretation is that any device attached to the structure should be included in the calculation of lot coverage and setbacks, just as any other part of the structure. I note that Mr. Jane, in his as-built survey, Exhibit 4, he states that that is AC deck. Is there a difference between deck and platform? According to section 32.3D, which is, for all new construction, substantial improvements and repairs to structures that have sustained substantial damage, fully enclosed areas below the lowest floor that are subject to flooding shall be designed to automatically equalize hydrostatic forces on exterior walls by allowing for the entry and exit of floodwaters. Designs for meeting this requirement must either be certified by a Connecticut registered professional engineer or architect, or must meet and exceed the following minimum criterion. A minimum of 2 openings having a total net area of not less than 1 square inch for every square foot, measured to the exterior enclosure walls of each enclosed area shall be provided. Flood openings shall be provided on at least 2 separate enclosure walls, and if the structure has more than 1 enclosed area, openings must be installed in the exterior walls of each enclosed area so that the floodwaters can either enter directly from the outside. Garage doors do not meet the flood vent requirements unless equipped with flood openings. And as you saw in the earlier drawings, there are no flood openings in the garage doors. The bottom of all openings shall be no higher than 1 foot above the original exterior grade. Openings shall be equipped with screens, louvers, or other coverings or devices, provided that they permit the automatic entry and exit of floodwaters. Fully enclosed areas below BFE within the AE zone are limited to building access only, cannot exceed 299 square feet in size, and shall be constructed of flood-resistant materials per FEMA Technical Bulletin 2, which is attached, you have a copy. Flood damage resistant requirements, enclosures below 1 foot above BFE can only be used for vehicle parking, building access, or limited storage, and are prohibited for use as living area. Bulletin 2, I'm sorry. So according to section 32.3D of the regulations, areas below the lowest floor must be designed to automatically equalize flood forces on exterior walls by allowing for the entry and exit of flood waters. Enclosed areas below the BFE must be constructed of flood-resistant materials as per FEMA Technical Bulletin 2, flood damage resistant requirements. Sheetrock, all varieties used by Jackie Davis on her ceilings, beams, chases, etc. in the interior of the garage below BFE are not acceptable. Exhibit 19A. There's sheetrock there. Exhibit 19B. Sheetrock there. 19C. Sheetrock on the ceiling as well. And D. Sheetrock to cover up the chase, which is right behind the man in the t-shirt. I have included the table which listed as not acceptable flood resistant materials per FEMA Technical Bulletin 2, which is Exhibit 20, and you can see those are unacceptable. Okay. Section 32.3 of the regulations, compensatory storage. Compensatory storage, the water holding capacity of the floodplain, except those areas which are tidally influenced, shall not be reduced. Any reduction caused by filling, new construction, or substantial improvements involving an increase in footprint to the structure shall be compensated for by the deepening and/or widening of the floodplain. Storage shall be provided on site unless easements have been gained from adjacent property owners. It shall be provided within the same hydraulic reach and a volume not previously used for flood storage. It shall be hydraulically comparable and incrementally equal to the theoretical volume of flood water at each elevation up to and including the 100-year flood elevation, which would be displaced by the proposed project. Important to note here that this compensatory storage is obtained by deepening or widening the floodplain that's below grade. So section 32.3 of the regulations, compensatory storage, was violated by Jackie Davis, failing to install the 2 Cultec 330 rechargers for which a permit was issued and closed. Each of the required 2 Cultec permitted for on-site detention have a capacity to store hundreds of gallons. Cultec Recharger 330 XL has a storage capacity of 475 gallons until the water can seep into the ground. The fact that the Cultec rechargers were not installed has now been acknowledged by Jane in the revised as-built, which we showed you, Exhibit 25. That was uploaded on behalf of Jackie Davis on 2/5/2025, the day before our prior hearing. And by the engineering department as further described shortly. The revised as-built signed by Jane shows that the trench, which is 24 feet, and you can see it there, by 2 feet by 1 and filled with some stone, was installed by 10/24/2024 instead of the 2 Cultec 330s as permitted. However, even this trench shown on the revised as-built was not created, as the engineering department inspection confirmed, only a depth on average of 9 to 10 inches of gravel on the surface. I own the home adjacent to the garage lot and have assembled information relating to the process from my security cameras, survey data, videos, extemporaneous diary notes, photographs, and information from the engineering department, some listed below. While the Jane revised as-built confirms our observation that no Cultec compensatory storage was installed by Jackie Davis, the survey is not correct about the date of the installation of the gravel, as well as other things, but rather was simply backdated to the date before the certificate of occupancy was issued. The relevant chronology of events is as follows. On 9/21/24, there's a photo of the easterly leader with elbow draining onto grade. So we still have drainage onto grade as of 9/21/24. Exhibit 21F. I'm just waiting for them to finish discussing.
You can't hear them. You can keep going.
According to the building, I'm sorry. So according to the building department records, the ZEO approval of Jackie Davis's zoning compliance is dated 10/10/24, before even the date stated on the Jane revised as built. (10/10/24), exhibit 21G. You can see here that nothing is going in the ground, it's all at grade. This is an image of the easterly leader with elbow to grade. Thus, on the date the zoning compliance certificate was issued, the roof was draining to the gravel at approximately the original grade. Jackie Davis planned an outside party on 10/27/2024, and she sought a noise abatement permit, and that required her to obtain a CO. 10/25/24. Fairfield building records show that on 10/25/24, Davis received her CO from the building department before she completed the installation of the FEMA required on-site detention. 10/26/24. Photo of easterly leader cut up high for the rain barrel shown with elbow 21D. 21D, exhibit 21D, yep.
Not big.
Pardon?
D?
21D, sorry, I'm so sorry, I'll turn around. There we go. That shows the easterly leader with elbow over the rain barrel on 10/26/24, so we still haven't installed Cultec. 10/30/24. Photo of easterly leader cut up high with elbow but no rain barrel. Exhibit 21C. 21C. Yeah. But there's no rain barrel, but it's still cut up. So it's still grading, draining to grade. There's no detention on site.
No, grade beams are still exposed.
Right, and you can see the grade beams there are still exposed on the house, on the structure, sorry. (11/11/24). Exhibit 21A1. The hard one to see. Also, you can look at 21A2. Both of those still show that as of November 11th, there's no Cultec installed. She already has a CO. 11/20/24. So you can see that they're still draining to grade. We have a CO, but an incomplete project. 10/20/24, exhibit 21H. Yes. According to this photo, you can see that on the 20th of November, about a month after the date on the Jane revised as-built, the actual excavation work, some excavation work was done at the site. And there's a second, then you can see in the second photo, they're just moving gravel around. Okay, 12/23/24. Photo of the easterly leader buried in gravel fill Exhibit 21E. E is an elephant, sorry.
Can I ask you a question? I don't want to interrupt, but are these photo stamped, the dates, like, so you have something to prove out your timeline? Okay, thank you.
They come with, on the camera like that, the dates. There's a little thing, a button you press.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
But
just
is there-
don't
is
see it
there-
on the pictures.
Oh, I don't have it on, I don't have it on the drawings, but if you would like verification, I can get that for you. Yeah. As can be seen from the above record, the gravel work was done on 11/20/24, not by 10/24/24. In addition to the trench, the Jane revised as-built shows a 4-inch, and this is in Exhibit 25. Can you zoom in on the bottom? Thank you.
It takes a little time.
Nope, not a problem. In addition to the trench, you can see the gravel work was done, as I said, on 11/20/24, not 10/24/24, but you can see in the Jane revised as-built, there shows a 4-inch PVC pipe leading to the southeast corner of the garage. Both the northeasterly and northwesterly corners have leaders buried into the gravel, but the southeasterly corner has no leader whatsoever. So it's unclear what that pipe was for. Unfortunately, the above combined with other irregularities, some of which are described in the following passage, which I will read to you, call in to question the veracity of Jane's work. The Jane
I
survey,
just want to, when you say Jane, you're referring to the survey.
Neil Jane, yes,
that
sorry.
had okay,
The final,
survey.
well, it actually calls into question the work, the research that we've done calls into question all of the work.
Okay, but we're gonna call it an as-built, correct?
Well, there are
Is it a
two,
survey or an as-built?
there are two as-built.
Are they both called Jane?
Jane is the, Neil Jane is the,
Okay, but if you could just keep Jane's as-built, Jane survey, just
Well,
for
no,
the record?
there are two as-built, that's what I'm
Okay,
trying to
then
say.
Jane's as-built dated, Jane's as-built dated, that will help.
I'm not sure I have the dates here, but if you'd like me to get them, I will try, I'll try and describe them differently, so that the problem is that the second one was backdated. That is not a correct date. The engineering, so the Jane Survey Exhibit 25, uploaded to the Fairfield Zoning Department on 2/5/2025. This is the Exhibit Jane Trench, I call it the trench as-built because it's the later one with the trench in it. So the Jane Trench as-built uploaded to the Fairfield Zoning Department on 2/5/25, the day before our appeal and months after the date on the survey, has a number, it's months, it's 3 months. The drawing still, I'm sorry, it has a number of irregularities. The drawing still does not acknowledge the presence of the asphalt and paver and concrete apron. The awning eaves, rakes, or gutters. The drawing does not change the distance between the road center line and the pier, I'm sorry, however, the drawing does change the distance between the road center line and the pier-to-pier front face to 18.1, which had, our surveyor measures at 17.9. Jane actually measured it at less than 18.1 in his original as-built, and then he just changed it so it would match up with the variance. When the last Jane as-built had 18 feet, JPG calls out the same distance as 17.9. In his survey and data list, the Jane, and I had him check this a number of times. The Jane survey does not correct the wrong HVAC dimensions, elevation, and position that have been carried over from the earlier as-built Exhibit 4. That's the first as-built without the trench. Is that clearer?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Exhibit 4. Exhibit 4. Oh, I'm sorry, just acknowledge, sorry.
Time to roll back and forth and.
I know, it's,
zoom and-
yes, yes. JPG shot the HVAC and included the information in his dimension list, Exhibit 8, which you've seen before, so all of those are certified dimensions. Okay. So as I said, all of this calls into question the veracity of Jane's work. The engineering department's inspection of the on-site detention was conducted on 11/25/24. And as I said, the excavating work was completed on the 20th. And the engineering department reported that it says after the gravel was dumped on the property by 11/20/24, but more than a month after the certificate of occupancy was granted, and a month and a half after the zoning compliance certificate, which I'm appealing, was granted. Even then, the permit called for 2 330 Cultec rechargers with gutters to drain into. And what was found on inspection was just an average of 9 to 10 inches of gravel. Over the 800 square foot of gravel driveway, estimated 200 cubic feet of storage. This confirms the lack of any Cultec rechargers or any below grade detention, including the alleged trench shown in the revised as-built. So I think it's important, I'm going to show this, for you to see what gravel really does and what gravel really doesn't do. We're already finding that we're getting water draining onto our property from this work. And so you're going to see that the rocks just simply do nothing.
You know,
Dumping 9 to 10 inches of gravel on top of the surface of the ground may serve to hide a lot of things, including the concrete grade beam structure that should not have been built above grade and the bottom end of the leaders, but it neither deepens nor widens the floodplain as required in section 32.3, nor does it provide any storage. There is nothing to retain the excess water flowing off the roof and impervious surfaces as it simply flows through the gravel to the surrounding properties, principally mine, the street and the town properties as well. Section 32.5C of the regulations. 32.5C, all new construction, substantial improvements and repairs to structures that have sustained substantial damage shall be elevated on adequately anchored pilings or columns designed not to exceed a maximum of 30 by 30 inches dimension, including any cladding material, and securely anchored to such piles and columns so as the lowest horizontal structural member, excluding piles or columns, is elevated to 1.1 foot or more above the base flood level. Any pier or column section which exceeds the maximum dimension shall be oriented parallel to the direction of the wave flow and shall achieve a design that provides greater free of obstruction area with smaller number of structural supports than the maximum 30 inches by 30 inches design. A Connecticut registered professional engineer or architect shall certify that the structure is securely anchored to adequately anchored pilings or columns in order to withstand velocity waters and hurricane wave wash. And the space beneath the lowest floor shall be free of obstruction or be constructed with breakaway walls intended to collapse under stress without jeopardizing structural support. Said space shall not be used for human habitation. The top of foundation grade beams shall be located a minimum of 5 feet below the existing grade to prevent from scour damage. Enclosures with breakaway walls are not to exceed 299 square feet, including any elevator enclosures designed to meet FEMA requirements. The remainder of the building's exterior perimeter may be screened with open work lattice or slat material compliant with FEMA Technical Bulletin 5 that also provides 40% visibility into screened areas. So section 32.5 of the regulations requires that the top of the foundation grade beams shall be located a minimum of 5 feet below the existing grade to protect from scour damage. The as-built garage does not satisfy this requirement. The engineer foundation plan submitted with the building application showed no above grade beams, but as built there are above grade concrete beams. Exhibit 22A, please. There you see the grade beam on top of which is one 5.5 inch slat fastened securely. So it doesn't go to grade. Now look at 22B is another view of the same. And those grade beams go around all sides except for the front where the doors are, which of course block 100% flow through. And there's another grade beam. Not only are above grade beams not allowed, but they also prevent the free flow of water at grade through the structure, which is required and was shown in the foundation plan, Exhibit 12. And here you see that the slats and these drawings go down to grade, whereas in real life, they are fastened on top of concrete grade beam. Even when breakaway walls are used, flood openings are required to be no higher than 1 foot. And here the concrete beam is 1 foot, 1.4 feet with an added 5.5 foot slat tightly fastened above it, making the first 23 inches obstructed, nearly 2 feet blocked from the free flow. Of floodwaters. Exhibit 4, I'm sorry, God bless you.
Thank you.
Exhibit 14. Can you, there you see it. So you can see how big that concrete beam is. And then on top of it, you see connected to it a 5.5 inch AZEK or some other plastic flat. Exhibit 7 of and also Exhibit 8 of the JPGA confirms all dimensions used here. So we have Exhibit 7 of the survey and Exhibit 14, which also the Exhibit 7 verifies, as the survey verifies the top height of the concrete grade beam. Section 32.5C, free of obstruction, deals with the requirement of breakaway walls and/or meeting free of obstruction qualifications. Exhibit 13, and this is the plans from the variance application. These are the plans submitted with zoning variance application, showed breakaway walls starting from grade. The plan submitted for the building permit abandoned the breakaway walls entirely and stated that the exterior slatted walls at the garage level were to comply with 40% free of obstruction, the FEMA requirement. So Exhibit 12, that changes. We don't have breakaway, now we have slats. But you can see even here that they start at grade. These slatted walls also started at grade, and in order to meet the 40% open requirement, after taking into account the framing and other obstructions, the spacing of the slats alone allowed for 70% open. Exhibit 14, please, again. The as-built structure is not consistent with either the approved variance application drawings or the permit application drawings, which are materially different from each other. There are no breakaway walls as built, only slats. The best case example of the most open slatted panel, as you can see from here, is one with open spacing from grade to base flood. This is, but here we are blocked by larger slats, the framing to which the slats are attached, and there's a concrete member from grade member of 1 foot 5 inches above grade. It is only 27%, not 40% as required, so it's not compliant. And this is only true in the 27% that I showed you, and you can see here, is only true in a panel that has no other blockages, such as exist in this garage with doors, staircase enclosures, chases. Of course, the situation was made much worse by Jackie Davis by backing the open lattice with corrugated plastic, making the slats 0% open. And also the garage doors are 0% open. Jackie Davis installed the solid textured plastic panels on the inside of the garage, covering any areas where there were openings. Although this last step did occur after the certificate of zoning compliance was issued, the ZEO was notified on 11/12/24 of the situation, And it wasn't until 2 days before our 2/6/2025 hearing that some of the corrugated plastic was removed. So it was left by Jackie Davis for 3 months. Exhibit 23. And this is a letter from our lawyer to Mr. Decker, presumably in preparation for our originally scheduled hearing. Similar plastic sheets were seen being carried out of the garage on 2/4/2025. You can see them across the street. One of our cameras picked up. So they were there for 3 months. On a subsequent visit on 2/18/2025, I observed that smaller areas of the corrugated plastic remained in place. So they were not totally removed. Exhibit 29A is a photo of the corrugated plastic next to the door to the garage. And 29B shows that's along the side. I guess it was fitted, so they decided to leave it. And then above the door to the garage, there's more. So it's likely that the larger corrugated sheets might be reinstalled at a later date, or else they would have removed these. Even in the unlikely event that all the corrugated plastic is eventually removed, the amount free of obstruction is less than the 40% required. It's still between 0% on the face where the garage doors are installed and 27% on the best case scenario panel. 32.5C, certification of compliance. Section 32.5C also requires that a Connecticut registered professional engineer or architect shall certify that the structure is securely anchored to adequately anchored pilings or columns in order to withstand velocity waters and hurricane wave wash, and the space beneath the lowest floor shall be free of obstruction or be constructed with breakaway walls intended to collapse under stress without jeopardizing structural support. Such a certification doesn't appear in the public file. Jackie Davis failed to meet the stated condition on which the variance was based, that the structure will be maintained as approved through the plans. The great majority of the violations of the regulations described above were caused by building a structure that was not in accordance with the approved plans. These will not be repeated here, even though they are equally violating this condition. Beyond that, there are other substantial changes from the approved plans that may not specifically violate the regulations, but do materially alter the very large structure built on this very small 1527 square foot lot. And that's confirmed with Exhibit 8, the letter which certifies the dimensions. These include, but are not limited to the following. Jackie Davis failed to meet the stated condition on which the variance was based by adding the heat and air conditioning compressor to the outside of the structure and extending the structure in the direction of my property. Jackie Davis failed to meet the stated condition on which the variance was based by shifting the entire structure closer to my property in both directions. This was done after Davis had written to me on March 10th, 2024. We flushed the garage to the far left for your benefit, so it wouldn't be so close to your property. In the series of plans/surveys, starting with those presented to the board in the variance application from before I owned property at 297, to the as-built trench survey, did the proposed or as-built building move in any direction other than closer to my property? The only apparent reason for flushing the garage to the left prior to that time was being able to park cars outside the garage on my side of the property. Jackie Davis failed to meet the stated condition on which the variance was based by increasing the height of the building by more than 10%, 2.6 feet. The plan submitted to this board showed a maximum height of 23 feet 7 inches, and both proposed and as-built surveys show a maximum height of 24 feet, which presumably represents the dwelling as it is shown as existing. The elevation of the ridge of the garage roof measured multiple times by JPGA was 32.62 feet, And if we are to accept the average grade of 6.4 from land surveying services, it cannot be measured without going onto the property because of the gravel that was dumped on top of it by Jackie Davis. The height of the garage building would be 26.22 feet, 32.62 minus 6.4, which is 2.64 feet or 11.2% higher than the 23.58 shown in the plans. And also, Jackie Davis failed to meet the stated condition on which the variance was based by not limiting the use of the office space above the garage to home office use. As you were assured by Attorney Fallon would be the case on her behalf. Conclusion. In summary, the ZEO erroneously issued zoning compliance for permit PZ 24-0004 because the accessory structure was not built in accordance with the approved variance application. The changes to the originally approved plans were never certified as required by section 32 of the zoning regulations, and the accessory structure otherwise violates section 32. And applicable, So section 32 of the zoning regulations and accessory structures otherwise violates section 32 and applicable provisions of section 11 of the zoning regulations, including but not limited to the following. Section 11.10 lot coverage, section 11.11 side yard setbacks, section 11.13 setbacks from Fairfield Beach Road, Old Dam Road, French Street, Pine Creek Avenue. Section 11.16 rear yard setback for lots fronting on French Street, Pine Creek Avenue, and Old Dam Road. Section 32.1C, design and certification for flood compliance. Section 32.1F, inclusion of HVAC compressor and lot coverage. Section 32.3D, flood opening. Section 32.3G, compensatory storage. Section 32.5C, grade beams free of obstruction, certification of compliance, etc. Jackie Davis was granted a generous variance by this board beyond even what is authorized to grant. So you granted her more than you're authorized to grant, but it came with both express and implied conditions. She gladly accepted the variance, but paid no mind to the conditions. The express conditions were that the structure be FEMA compliant and that it be built in accordance with the submitted plans. The implied condition was that the structure be built in accordance with the zoning regulations as varied by the granted variance. What was built complied with none of these conditions, but it was approved nonetheless by the ZEO. Even beyond the many violations listed above that were overlooked by the ZEO when giving his approval prior to the installation and approval of the inadequate on-site detention, the violations continued to rack up thereafter. As an example, consider the requirement under section 32.5C, implementing FEMA's freedom of obstruction rules. The plans presented for the building permit stated that the rules would be met by providing 40% free of obstruction, starting at grade. Exhibit 12, permit plans with foundation plans. So you can see that there were slats in the drawings which were spaced apart to provide 40% net. But no one seemed to object when similar rules were violated when the dwelling at 282 Pine Creek across the street was lifted about 5 years ago. So if you look at the photograph of the house and the slats underneath the house, you'll see that they're exhibit 24. You can see that the spacing there too is still very close. No one seemed to object when she did that, so she did the same thing at the garage. And if you look at the original slat spacing, you'll see that it was close, just like that. That's 24 feet. Yes. And this is, of course, not FEMA compliant. And I can tell you, I observed this installation and it's an 1.5 inch spacing between 5.5 inch slats. They were using a 2x4 on side, which is 1.5 inches. So this is not FEMA compliant. When this all too obvious problem was pointed out with respect to the garage slats, half of the slats were removed, reduced inside and replaced. But you can see from the slat drawing that I showed you that even in the best of cases, their revision was only 27% open. And with the garage doors in the front, it's 0%. The direction from which the tidal waves would originate. Even then, once the ZEO issued the zoning compliance certificate, all or nearly all of the remaining opens were blocked with corrugated plastic panels, bringing the net open area to 0% around the entire garage. A letter from our attorney, as I said before, on November 12th, met with no response and no apparent action for months until a couple of days before our original hearing date, when the plastic sheets were seen being removed from the garage. That's exhibit 27 that I showed you before. Based on our observation of the failure of the ZEO to enforce violations of the zoning regulations against Jackie Davis, we have not yet pointed out the substantial violation of the use limitations in section 1112 of the regulations, which has been ongoing since the end of October of 2024. I have here something that, do you have it shown? Okay, all right, sorry. I'll start again. Based on our observation of the failure of the ZEO to enforce violations of the zoning regulations against Jackie Davis, we have not yet pointed out the substantial violation of the use limitations 11.1.2, which has been ongoing since the end of October of 2024. Section 11.1.2 allows use such as for a home office only when the person or persons conducting the home occupation shall reside in the dwelling. This board was told by Jackie Davis's lawyer, Attorney Fallon, that the office was to be used solely by Jackie Davis and her husband, and their work in the office area would be limited to phone conferences, virtual meetings, and the like. While that story may have been consistent with home office use, it has turned out to be just a story told by Fallon on behalf of Jackie Davis in order to obtain the variance. In reality, someone has been commuting to the office during the week on a daily basis for months. So what would appear to be his primary place of business. Exhibit 26, that's the Jeep, and with the license plate BJ 35057. But this professional office was not an afterthought, as Jackie Davis wrote to me about a year ago on March 10th, 2024. The office is for my husband and his associate sometimes only, so it won't be a bother to you. The only difference from that is that it appears that the sometimes applies to her husband, John, and not the associate. This use is not allowed in the Beach District in accordance with section 11.1.2, and there was no variance requested or granted with respect to that section. To the contrary, Attorney Fallon assured this board that the office would be exclusively used by Mr. and Mrs. Davis. And if you look at all of the pictures here, this is just a subset of the many, many, many pictures we have. But what you can see here is that that person is there on a regular basis. You can also see that one of the problems which we are having with that, there's a fence that was installed by Jackie Davis, and it's so close to the road that I can't pull out of my driveway. And there's one of the photographs which I can see in the upper right corner where that Jeep nearly hit a car because he couldn't see what was coming because of that fence, which is too close to the road. This appeal is not about a situation where there have been some minor and inadvertent errors in the construction of an approved structure, although I wish that were so. Jackie Davis is a VP at William Ravis and very, very active in real estate as an agent and for her own account. This last year, she was involved on one side or another of 46 listings, about one per 8 days. She buys, develops, and sells property on her own and in partnership with others. She is not inexperienced. It appears to be the case that from the outside, she requested the most that she could possibly hope to be granted and then built well beyond what she was granted. It appears that her familiarity with various town departments resulted at a minimum in lax enforcement of the regulations with respect to Jackie Davis's project. She received the town's quick blessing to build a garage on a parcel of land for which she did not have a deed, and was provided variances not allowed to be granted by the zoning board. She submitted applications that did not meet the minimum requirements, and they were approved immediately. She received final approval before the work was not complete. I am here today because I feel extremely strongly that the ZBA should take a close and careful look at this project, because Jackie Davis has violated so many zoning and zoning FEMA regulations. And the results will profoundly and adversely impact me and the other nearby neighbors, and could negatively impact the entire town. This request deserves special consideration because it involves enforcing the flood protection provisions of the regulations, which are derived from rules set forth by FEMA. FEMA takes the minimization of damage from flooding seriously because it has seen what can happen, as have I. As I said in the beginning of my presentation, Irene, Sandy, and even Hurricane Gloria have left indelible images in my memory of what damage the force of hurricane winds can cause. FEMA has delegated enforcement of this flood zone construction standards to the local municipalities. Fairfield has incorporated these standards in section 32 of the regulations. Writing the rules in the regulations does not reduce flood damage any more than granting a permit to install on-site detention if the rules are not enforced. Failure to enforce them will ultimately result in substantial damage from future flood events. I'm already starting to see flooding in my yard. And may also result in town and the residents of the town no longer being eligible to purchase insurance under NFIP. I believe that this board has the responsibility to protect the residents of Fairfield from all those serious adverse consequences. I ask that you please look to the innocent young child within you who was taught about the difference between right and wrong, and grant my appeal of the CO granted Jacqueline Jackie Davis. Thank you. Our attorney would like to speak.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you.
Thank you for your patience.
And yes, thank you especially for your patience. I'm going to keep it short. I think I sent over to Mr. Decker earlier this afternoon a 3-page document,
have that.
which is a summary.
Yeah.
Okay. The point of it was to try to put a exclamation point on what's going on.
I'm sorry, can
Yes,
you
sir.
state your name and address?
My name is Raymond Garcia. I'm an attorney with Garcia and Milas. Our office is in New Haven, Connecticut. We do construction litigation and zoning, other kinds of commercial work. Yeah. I haven't had the benefit of standing before this board before, but we do a lot of sophisticated zoning work. This case presents a lot of interesting issues. I had read this proposal several times. I built a home on the water myself. I can't, first of all, as I see you sitting here, I know it's a thankless job, and I've listened to the last hour and a half worth of the detail here. Must be particularly troubling, but I think frankly, it's the nature of the beast. So I apologize in advance. I'm not going to repeat it. Again, that was the reason why this occurs, okay? The thing that gets me most from this is the stuff that was done that flaunts health and safety rules. They're little things in some regard, but frankly, they're big things in the same way. I mean, the knockout panels, the coverage of the bottom, the overuse of the building, the flaunting of whatever the side yard setback requirements are. The fact that she doesn't even have title to this for this piece of property. I mean, I'd love to know that if that's solved or something, but we did the title search. She doesn't have title to that property. The fact that if we ran a survey back ran a root survey back, there's a tree that might actually be on our property. And there are a bunch of things here that are problematic. I was asked at the outset of my involvement what the remedy would be. And in other cases we've been involved in, the remedy involves some combination of ending up in Superior Court in an action for damages against the homeowner who violates, which is certainly a possibility here. But in addition, an order by the board to make the thing conform. then you have problems of enforcement. It is to say, if they've taken such leave up to this point, what's to say they're gonna not ignore you as you go forward? Because I think the information my client has given you is frankly irrefutable. I'd love to hear what the explanation is for these deviations. I'd love to hear what the justification is for the overhang violations, for the air conditioner, for all the different things that are going on. But frankly, I can't factually, I don't think they exist. They're not rational if they do. Because for each one of them, they'd have to come back and talk to you. Each one of them. And they haven't. They've ignored them. I've seen this kind of behavior before in developers. They take license. And it leaves boards like yours in a position where your role is to say, take it the heck out. And as town participants, that's a hard thing for people to do. They're neighbors, they're friends, they're acquaintances within the town. There are business interests that go around. Then you look at what's going on down the rest of the street to figure out how many other people have inconsistencies that might be similar. Well, we're not here to talk about the inconsistencies down the street or what might have existed relative to other properties. We're here to talk about this one. And that's what we presented on. And that's really the only concern you should have. So hopefully this roadmap will present enough to put together. You heard from Mrs. Judelson. As you can tell, she's an architect and she's a very knowledgeable person. And I think what she has told you about is all meaningful stuff. It may not seem that way, but it is, each in its own piece. And so I hope that what you'll do is you'll issue an order demanding that this property be brought into conformance. And if that means tearing stuff down, she took that risk when she overbuilt. Thank you.
Are you,
I'm just moving this out of the
Okay.
way for you.
so, I think, I know you want to speak. I think that will be after the board asks questions of the applicant or the person looking.
Sure.
Right?
After.
Am I doing that in the correct order? So right now, we want them to come up.
Yeah, that's anybody in favor or opposition.
But I thought we always talked to the applicant before that. Yeah. We always,
It's up to you on how you want to run the meeting. I mean, you can do it
okay,
that way.
so,
or-
That's fine.
well, okay, I think we might ask better questions and be more informed if you come up now and talk. Okay, sure. And we'll listen to you, and then we'll ask. Okay. So just name, address, not that we have not heard your name and address a lot, but please.
Thank you. My name's Jackie Davis, 282 Pine Creek Avenue. I'm gonna keep this short and not take too much of your time. I'm confused by this whole attack on us. It's been long and it's been very hard on myself, my husband, my 4 daughters, and my sick mother. It's been constant, as you can see by all the pictures that have gone on, and we're not sure as why this is going on. Neither are most of the neighbors that we've talked to. That said, I do own the deed. I talked to Sean Dobson today in the assessor's office. I do have title to that. My mom owned the property for 40 years. She deeded it to me. I did all the construction. I built it up. I raised it and I built it up to include my mom who has stage 4 cancer, so my husband and I can take care of her. Which it's been hard because she's been harassed for the past 2 years and it's been a hard few years. But that said, we did want to get a garage for my husband to go across the street, and he's one of the primary caretakers of my mother, and to work across the street and go over there. So I hired my licensed builder who has done my side builds for years, like Ms. Jorgensen had said, and he does everything by the book. He has gone in front of the town many times. He's built many homes in the beach area. I deferred to him and I trusted him. And I've been texting him throughout this just to make sure that the accusations against me personally, which I don't actually do the physical building, if there's any validity to it, because I want to make sure that we're doing the right things. I also, so I do own, number one, I do own the home across the street. That's not even a question. It's just silly. Number two, I went to Neil Jane today to get some plans to see if there was any validity, what she had said, which there's not. And number three, I spoke to John Provenzano, my licensed contractor, to ask him if we had done anything wrong. And he said, so I'm just gonna read you some of the text, if that's okay, that I've been sharing with him. So the first thing that he sent to me was the stairs are according to plan, the garage is according to plans, the plans are stamped by a certified engineer. See the blue stamp on the plans, which he sent me a copy of. I'm happy to show it to you. It's the bottom right corner of the seal. He said we've done everything by the book, not to worry. He said I spent $2,000 putting enough gravel to cover the rain barrel. It's approved by the engineering department and stamped. So there's a few things that Neil Jane had showed me today, and I can show it to you. This is a GIS map showing each parcel. The yellow is my parcels, the blue is 297. And I can show these to you after. This is the survey of our property across the street that we do own.
Upside down.
Oh, my glasses on, sorry. Okay, so this is the survey. No, well, just because this is across the street.
I'm
Okay, so,
sorry.
yeah,
Okay.
that's okay. So this is across the street and this is hers. And what Neil did was he took the two surveys and he married them together to show you that, the land surveyors did both properties and Neil Jane made surveys for both and put together to show no overlap. This survey is shown dimensions from the structure, not the overhang. So one of the things that she was talking about is that we were illegal because where the setbacks were. I'm not sure. So this survey is hers, is what Mr. Edelson did. It's from the roof overhang, not the structure. That is not how it's legally done. So Neil did everything right. He did exactly what he did. He measured his proportions. I asked him, I mean, I hire somebody that I've used in many of the builds that my clients have used. And so in my mind, I did everything that I was supposed to do. I did an appeal. We won the appeal. We tried to, Mr. Edelson had asked me to upgrade my system because she didn't want something loud. I spent an extra $10,000 putting in a system that would be quiet over there. The neighbor 2 doors down is a little bit louder and she had complained about how loud that was. So my system is very quiet. It makes no noise. I can go out there at any time of day and I can videotape it for you. It will not make a sound. It's great. She talks about the driveway. She has a bigger apron. And so, and the same amount of gravel, we put more gravel in because the engineering department had asked us to do so. And I paid for it. I've done everything that I could possibly do. She parks her car across the street, not in her own driveway, but in front of my mailbox, and said she could legally do that. She does not park her car in the driveway. She parks it in front of my, ever. She comes down. When her cameras see that there's any builders, she comes down and then she parks her car there. And we've asked her several times not to, because it upsets my mother, and she just does it. So I don't know how my fence could be a problem with her because she parks across the street on our side in front of our mailbox. And anyways, we have not set out to do anything wrong. I try to be a law-abiding citizen, and, have I messed up? Yes. Have I taken into account anything that I have? Yes. I'd like to live harmoniously, like we did have a block party, like she said. I invited them if they wanted to come and be joyous with the rest of the neighborhood to celebrate, because we did put this garage up and it was, you know, a lot of disturbance for people while we were building. So yes, we did have a block party and we invited everybody, including them. And we had a great time, and we did the noise ordinance, and we did what we could to give back to our neighborhood and to thank them. I've never, ever had anything in my life like this. It's upsetting, it's ongoing. And I just, you know, if you have any questions, or if you would like me to examine something with my builder or to look further into something, I'm open to it. I, just like when she moved in and she asked me about the garage, she had the right to appeal it. I was open to working with her, and I was open to working like I did when I upgraded my system to a more expensive unit, which I can show you, and I can tell you, I can show you what we originally, and so, you know, we like to be neighborly, and this is just all just hard for us, and it's different, and you know, it's upsetting, but you know, if you have any questions of me, I'm happy to answer them. I'm happy to, you know, look into anything that you want, but again, we try to do the right thing, and we've tried to live harmoniously in this neighborhood, and we really don't understand this kind of attack, but I think she believes that she has a case, so
Nor does most of the neighborhood.
okay, but let's just keep it to, so if you guys have questions for me, I'm happy to answer them. And
Well, I think we'll have, would you like to, okay, I think this is right. Would you like to come back up and address anything that they just said? Whoever your counsel, you? Okay, if that's all you want to say, that's fine then we'll just, if you could go sit down, and then we're
Okay.
gonna ask questions.
You-
Yeah. Of both party. Can we ask questions of both parties?
Ask questions anyway.
And we can, okay, so, sure. We are ready for the board to ask questions. Would you like to go first?
I have,
Jane?
yes, and are we permitted to ask questions of Mr. Decker
We
as
are.
well?
Yes, we are.
Okay, well, I'll save those questions for a minute, but
So you might want to, should she come up to the microphone so you can hear her?
whatever is,
Is that the microphone?
Yeah, we cannot hear you from back there, though. You're gonna have to stand up. Thank you.
these questions are not in any particular order, it just says. You were complaining about the noise level of the,
Air conditioning?
did you measure the decibel level?
I did not, but the manufacturer actually says in their manufacturing installation instructions to not put close to bedroom windows because it's noisy, and it is very close. Do you have?
We've seen it.
I've seen the plan, so.
That, the part of my house is that you see that's closest to that parcel is my bedroom.
But there's no decibel level that you've measured.
No, but the manufacturer said not to put it near bedroom windows.
Okay, that's fine.
May I?
Let me just finish asking and then we'll. Um, You're upset because of the cars, but can you acknowledge at least the cars were parked legally in their driveways? They're not. parked
I'm not
illegally?
sure that I was upset by the cars. The fact is that what had happened is that the explanation that Attorney Fallon gave was that the reason that they needed the cars was so the mother could have her car in the garage in the inclement weather. And what they ended up doing was just creating covered storage, and then they have outside storage. So it's the same as it was before.
But they're legally parked.
Well, actually, I'm not sure about that also
I'll
with.
confirm that with Mr.
Yes.
Decker.
Just-
I'll
can
confirm
I-
that with Mr. Decker.
Can I just explain
Yes.
about that? Because what you saw in the image with that car backing out is the reason why I don't park in my driveway anymore. Because when I back out, you see that car, the Jeep, nearly hit somebody because he couldn't see over the fence. If I park in my driveway, I can't see over the fence either. So that's why I park across the street, and they wouldn't want me to park in front of their lots because they've used the whole lot on both sides for driving in. So I can't do that. The closest I can get is when I pull up is just to pull, and I don't park in front of the mailbox, but I park just beyond it so that I can get into my house
And is
quickly.
street parking permitted?
Yes, yes,
Um,
yes.
I have pictures.
Okay.
So
Let me just, hold on for 1 second. Sorry.
Anyway, I check to make sure every time I park that I'm not blocking.
So one of the things you talked about was the height of the building.
Yes.
You know, in Fairfield, we don't measure height up to the ridge. You're aware of this, right? We
Well-
measure to halfway up the roof. That's where we measure height.
Well, then it's much higher than.
Because you were talking about.
In
the
that particular case, it is, I mean, you say in general, that may be true, but in this particular case, the question is to the top of the ridge. I measured the top of the ridge in her drawings and I measured to the top of the ridge based on our survey, so.
I'm just saying our,
So the difference, it doesn't really make a difference because if you're too high at the top, you're still high in the middle. So that
just
doesn't
to be
matter.
clear, that's not how we measure.
Yeah,
height.
but it still doesn't change the phenomenon of making it taller by that distance.
That's all my questions for you. Thank you. Do you want to talk after? Can I ask Matt some questions now?
Please.
Hi. Can you just explain what parts are of the FEMA regulations or the FEMA brochure that was presented is under your authority to make sure it's correct? Because I assume some things are under the building department, some things are under engineering department, one specifically under zoning.
It'll probably be easier to tell you what's not.
Okay, please tell us what's
And
not
building regulates how a structure is built.
correct.
Engineering regulates drainage. And all the other components fall under zoning for the flood requirements under the zoning department.
Okay, and then there was a discussion about the stairs, the interior of the stairs. What does that have to do with zoning?
Nothing.
What about-
Materials have to.
Yeah.
And based on what I had seen when I went out there, they were water resistant material. They were, it was a dense glass sheet rock, which is a water resistant material. What I was advised that they used.
Okay.
Which is, it's used below the flood line, a number of structures in the flood zone. And that's what they used.
And then relocating the door from the original location, does that have any bearing on zoning? Nothing. Okay. And then what, Matt, is this typical sequence of signing off in terms of CO from building, engineering, conservation, zoning, how does the normal sequence go?
Since we went online, there is no first, second, third, fourth. It's buildings last. And the other four agencies sign off when their when their requirements have been met.
Okay, so you signed off before the building,
Buildings last.
and has building signed off on
They
it?
signed the CO,
It's
yes.
closed.
It's closed.
The fence that was erected, was that compliant with regulations
Yes.
in terms of height and on the property and all
We
that?
only measure up to 6 feet. It's not
Okay.
above 6
Okay,
feet.
that's fine. And maybe this is maybe not a question for you, but maybe for our attorney.
Ask away.
What is our role in terms of being able to enforce any of these regulations?
None. You're faced with an appeal from the decision of the CEO, so your authority is to either sustain the appeal or
Not enforce
the
anything.
zoning enforcement officer enforces the
So
regulation.
that's just, okay, so just want to be clear that what our role is here. And I have one more question. I think that's it for now for me.
Do whatever you want, Harold and Joe. but-
Harold, would you like to go?
Go ahead.
You go ahead.
Mrs. Judelson, I know that you mentioned this initially, but what is your primary legal residence and voting address?
The voting address is not here in Fairfield.
As
I'm a property owner, but I haven't moved into this property.
can't hear you, I'm sorry.
This one. I am a property owner, but I am not a voting resident of Fairfield, but I'm a property owner.
Is your residence 30 Pleasant Hill Road in Woodbridge?
That's not my primary residence. It's actually at 160 Prospect in Guilford.
Okay, that address, though, is listed on the vision card of the town of Fairfield.
Right. Because that is a mailing address.
Okay, so
All
you,
my mail gets received at that address. But my legal residence and where I vote is in Guilford, Connecticut. Yes.
all right, thank you. The other question that I have is this your primary address?
The idea initially was that it was to be our primary address, but we had so many problems with the Davises that in the end, my husband has cancer as well, and he's been enrolled in a clinical trial at Memorial Sloan Kettering. And because we are far away, we wanted to get closer so that he could get in and out of the city more easily. And so the intention was to switch to move to Guilford, to switch to move to Fairfield. And so in the end, we couldn't do that because of all the problems that we had with the Davises.
So what would you say the percentage of the time a year that you reside in the Pine?
No, as I said, I'm the property owner there. We haven't moved in yet. So the answer is that, we've gone there on occasion, but it was supposed to become our primary residence. And had we not had problems with the Davises, been terrible problems with the Davises that we.
So you currently don't live there?
That's correct.
Okay. And again, getting back to the question that you asked the attorney about what authority we have to order removal or changes as the ZBA. The ZBA does not have the authority to affect those changes. Is that not done through a court order eventually?
If the town pursues enforcement for a zoning violation?
If the town refuses to grant, if the board chooses one way or the other, can the applicant take this to the court in the state of Connecticut?
Yes, the applicant has the right of appeal to the Superior Court.
Superior Court in Bristol?
I mean, no, in Bridgeport, I mean, the applicant, assuming the applicant is aggrieved, the applicant has the ability to bring an appeal in Superior Court.
Okay, my last question, Madam Chairman, is could you please clarify the effect of approval or denial of this vote relating to the reversal or modification?
So what you're asking me is, which way do you vote based on what they're asking for?
Correct.
So the applicant is asking us to reverse the decision of the zoning enforcement officer. So if we say yes, we are reversing his decision. Make sure I'm saying this right. And if we say no, it means we don't agree to reverse the decision.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, I think, go ahead, please.
First things first, Matt, I want this on the record. I want to just simple, short, yes, no, what have you. All right. Can you tell us that you issued the CO and certificate of zoning compliance in good faith with your understanding of the condition of the property relative to the maps information held by the town and your assessment of the property?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Second, Ms. Giles, from my understanding, everything you said, this structure remains technically, as we see it, given Matt's answer, as the town. So if we agree with that this property, as other board members have stated, the movement of the door, position of smaller items, don't change what we granted. We granted variances based on the codes set forth in the variance. If those are seen by the board to have been met, then that's it. Generally speaking, that's it. Stand by 1 second. One of those that you mentioned, and I want to make sure that we state this with clarity. This structure is not being used as a dwelling in any form. It remains as a garage with an office above.
Do you know that?
Well, what I know is that it's supposed to have been a home office, and I know that it's a professional office. So I know that that's not the same thing, because somebody who isn't living in the structure is using it full-time. And so that's not the same thing. So I'm not sure I can answer your question. I'm just telling you.
No one lives there.
It's, thank you.
But
I'm
it's
not
supposed
looking
to-
for an answer from you on anything just yet. I will ask plenty of questions of you momentarily. The
The other thing I
To
should.
to your knowledge or evidence, no one is retaining residence in that structure, number one. Number two, a condition of our variance, as far as I am aware, does not prevent, limit, or in any other way inhibit a visitor for any duration of time during the course of a day to any structure, whether they are professional, personal, or otherwise. Sure.
Okay, the first thing I would say is that one of the qualifications of submitting a variance application is to say that you own the property or you have permission by the person who does own the property. Fundamentally here, we have somebody who built on a property that they don't own and they don't have permission from somebody who does own it.
Well, I'm gonna stop you there just because
So, and I'm
that's
really
a
my
civil
attorney's.
matter. It
Well,
really
it's-
doesn't fall with us,
it
but I
is-
do want, could you just come back up just for a
It
quick
is a
session?
prerequisite to.
Because I'd like you to answer, so I think your question is, does anyone sleep there?
We don't know
Do
about
they
anybody
take
sleep,
showers
we don't have evidence that anybody's
So
sleeping,
you don't know that.
but we know,
No shower.
we know that nobody's sleeping there and
Okay.
forget the shower. We know there's somebody who's using it on a regular office, who's not a resident.
Okay.
So if your regulation says it's a
Yeah.
home office, that doesn't meet your regulation.
Okay, all right, thank you very much.
You can't run a commercial operation out of there with other people coming in.
I'll let you
It's okay for a doctor, lawyer, something, he's got his
So-
own office,
So
but it's
what-
not okay for somebody to have employees coming
It
there.
it is it is, to my understanding, and Matt and council can either back me up or tell me I'm insane. But if they were taking in-person appointments, if they were operating this as a proprietorship, if the building was either zoned as a business or being used as a full-time business, that would be one thing. But if their kids had someone over there 6 hours a day,
That's not what's going on.
if they're, I'm gonna finish my statement, and I'm gonna,
I apologize.
I'm gonna let them tell me whether I'm
Cool.
insane or not.
Right.
Okay?
Yep, I'm sorry.
Okay. If they had full-time care for their mother and the mother was using that as a physical therapy space, if that person was there for 8 hours a day, the reality is, whether they're an assistant or not, whether they are sitting there taking notes for someone or not, this still remains a home office. And it's not within your neighbor to know what someone's doing on your property. It's simply not. And if they wanna submit to the fact that they have an assistant that comes over and helps them, so be it. The reality is, there's a distinction of a professional property and a private property. If you're stating as a part of your appeal that this is a professional office, you didn't do so in writing, and you didn't make it a part of your appeal, as I can see. I don't see anything in here that says that this is being used a professional office.
I think she did say that.
I did, I'm sorry, maybe that was, I'm sorry, this is a very long presentation and
Yeah,
I
but-
can understand how you might have missed that.
There was a picture with several images and dates in a Jeep. The point of that exercise was to demonstrate that there's somebody here that's not visiting, but that is here on a regular basis.
Working.
Workers.
Brian, can I just can I ask you a question, Phil? If, let's just take another story, and a variance had been granted to somebody to do this apartment or do a home office, and then someone was living in this home office, right? Would they come here asking us to reverse the zoning officer's decision of compliance? Or where would they go to handle that?
Probably make a complaint because it's, assuming it's being used as a dwelling and it's an accessory structure, it wouldn't be a compliant.
Right. But the variance that was granted, if someone violates a use of a variance, what would happen?
CEO's approval, so they're just pointing out.
You don't grant use
They're
variance.
violating
We
this, but
granted
we
a
do have to
we
go
granted a variance for a home office.
Right, but we did not
You granted
What
a
did we
variance for finished space.
For finished
for
space.
finished
Okay,
space, that's
So
it.
it's some, and the condition of that is, well,
It
town,
wasn't used as a dwelling.
right, so if it was being used as a dwelling, what typically happens?
I get a phone call.
Right. Zoning enforcement goes out, but it wouldn't come in this application because the application is about the zoning enforcement officer shouldn't have given us a certificate of occupancy, correct? That's what you're here for today.
No, I can't,
Compliance, right?
excuse me, I have to say that it's complicated and to put it down to one point, I wouldn't do.
Okay.
And so it is a very complex situation where there are multiple violations and in the aggregate, it is overwhelming.
Okay. I want you to finish now. I'm sorry I interrupted.
That's quite all right.
I apologize for interrupting you a third time. So please.
Go ahead.
Okay. I'd like to address two things I've heard anecdotally. One is the ZBA clerk, whose last name I'm never going to be able to pronounce the first time, so I apologize for not trying it. I've heard lots of times that people have approved, the building official approved, somebody came out and looked. Many of the questions and issues we're raising are after that happened. So there's been changes afterwards. That's the first problem. The second problem is just because an architect said it's okay, doesn't make it okay. I mean, just because you've got a certificate there, because there's errors in the survey. And I frankly, I heard Ms. Nishbal talk about where you measure from. And I appreciate why you use the midline of the roof. It's a pitch roof, evens it out, I got it. But if it's high to begin with, it's high, and it's gonna be high, even if it's from the middle.
I think we want to be accurate in how we
So the
describe.
I'm sorry, but the measurements that I gave you were the measurements from the drawings based on the ridge. I didn't take the measurements that were not from the ridge, so I was comparing apples to apples.
So I'm gonna ask a question of Matt quickly. The condition of height of the roof as it sits now, is it within compliance of the zoning regulations?
Yes.
He doesn't know that. All he knows is what the architect certified. Did you measure it?
I based my information on my inspection.
Did you measure it?
No.
No. So he's selling the surveyor said it. We're telling you there's a mistake.
He's licensed by the state of Connecticut.
Big deal. He made a mistake. Happens all the time. I make my living telling those people how they make mistakes.
So I'm gonna ask council a question right now. Okay. In the existence of two competing surveys, is there any wisdom here to, and I can't use the word order, but is there any wisdom here to continuing this pending a survey, a closer survey or a survey by a neutral engineer, if agreed upon by the two parties, to establish the actual conditions of the property as it sits?
That would be to your judgment as a board about that and whether they would want to enter into that voluntary process. You also have the timeline of when you have to decide the application to consider.
You gotta, who's gonna pay for it?
Understood. I'm somewhere between asking a question and trying to mediate, but I'm trying to stay away from that. The information that this board has from our town and from the records contained herein say that, and I've worked with Matt for 7 years now, doesn't do things loosely. And I'm, listen, I understand mistakes are
Hey,
made.
Matt,
Mr.
oh, I
Decker.
apologize, Matt.
Mr. Decker.
I didn't say
I'll
Mr.
be
Decker did
fair.
anything loosely.
I understand that, and but what
He's done with
I'm
every
telling you the
person
criteria,
that's in the area does.
what I'm telling you, the criteria that this board bases its decisions on have everything to do with stamped, signed, and considered maps and plans.
We're telling you that this map is stamped and signed wrong.
Okay, well,
Okay.
what we're doing now is answering questions. No, well, I know, I'm sorry. And if someone, okay, but we're asking questions, the board's asking questions, right? So we're gonna stick with asking questions. Do you have any more
No, go
questions?
ahead, let Joe go.
Okay, Harold, I'm sorry, Joe, do you have any questions?
Yes. So I have a question of Matt. Matt, you've said that the survey is from a licensed surveyor.
Correct.
Still admitted, there's no, as far as you know, he gave us an accurate survey.
Yes.
Is there anything in the as-built survey that doesn't address any of the variance conditions that the board approved?
No.
And there's nothing that you've heard that leads you to believe that any error has been made in meeting the zoning compliance. So of the appellant, you have another map that you commissioned, another survey that you commissioned. Yes?
Yes.
Yes. And did you get permission from the Davises to go on their property to get this done?
We did not go on
Okay.
their property.
So.
No, we did not go on their property.
You did go on. I asked your surveyors to leave.
No,
We have pictures.
Okay, so if we
that's
did,
not for the
if he
point
didn't do it
right
right, if he did
Well-
something wrong, great, but let's get to the
But
questions.
I'm not aware how someone surveys a property without being on the property. So that is where I'm going with the question.
The
And,
survey,
Hold on. Good.
and it would seem to me that it's beyond the scope of this board to say which survey is right. That's something for a court to decide. It's not for the zoning board of appeals to decide. Because the applicant presented a qualified survey based on all public information. Whether the surveyor is not competent, that's not for us to decide. Whether there is nothing for us to consider now with respect to the survey. It also seems to me that you've raised lots of building code questions that are beyond the scope of this board. They're heard in another venue. Sure, go ahead.
Good.
I would like you also, I would have to say that what's happened here is we demonstrated by showing a picture of an apron, which doesn't appear on a survey. I mean, that's obvious, right there, you're looking at it, you're looking at an apron that doesn't appear on any of Jane's survey. The first time that it's put in, it's never on the survey. We show you an awning that doesn't show up on the survey. We show you a date, we prove to you a date is wrong, and you say that we have a licensed surveyor who put information down on a date that we know we've proven to you that is wrong. I don't, it's incomprehensible, I'm sorry to me.
Matt, do you want to just tell us a little bit about this apron?
Aprons are required. You're allowed up to 5 feet. Doesn't count towards your coverage. The engineering department requires it, so the stone doesn't roll out into the street if we get any rainfall.
Could you give us the citation for that, please?
An engineering requirement, not a zoning requirement.
But the zoning requirement is that you can't do that. I
Cited in our.
we cited it in our presentation.
Aprons are on every single piece of property.
That doesn't make it
Including
right.
yours.
Excuse me,
Including
excuse me.
all of them.
Well,
in
I
the
can't help
flood
that
zone,
if
exactly.
decisions were made and people did things that were wrong, it doesn't, if you kill
Okay,
somebody.
so
it
this is
doesn't
what
make it
happened
right.
last time. So this is what we're not gonna do. We're not gonna do this, okay? Because that's not helpful for everybody. And I know you want to talk, but I'm sorry. We've heard a lot. I think I think Joe was still going. It was still
Yes.
Joe's turn. You're welcome.
So is it fair to say that your request is entirely based on your contention that the Jane survey is inaccurate?
No, that's not correct.
Okay.
That's not correct. It is not all based on the Jane survey, sir. It is just not. There's information that I presented that has nothing to do with the survey information. There's information of the survey, and there's information that was not in the survey. But yes, that's not correct.
All right, so let's take the word entirely out of there and say that it's based on your contention that the Jane survey isn't accurate.
No, I wouldn't say that. I'm sorry, but I couldn't say that. I'm very precise. in
So
my
is the
language.
Jane survey accurate?
I don't agree that it's accurate, no. I think that Jane's survey is not accurate. That's correct, but that doesn't mean that my premise here is that because of the survey, that these are violations. There are violations without anything having to do with the survey. The fact is that the language of the regulations prohibits, despite what Mr. Decker is saying, it prohibits this, and maybe there's a conflict in the regulations that you have with respect to engineering and the regulations you have in the zoning ordinance. I am not here to tell you what you should do or not do. Your job is to enforce zoning regulations, not engineering.
It's not to enforce.
Yeah, no, our job here is to determine whether the zoning compliance certificate was correctly or incorrectly issued. That is the only question for us.
We don't enforce.
No, we do not. Are you all set? Okay. Does anyone on the board have any more questions?
Yes, Mr. Decker, how does one typically measure building coverage? What part of the building?
Outside wall.
Not eaves?
No.
That's standard
Standard.
operating procedure.
Yes, correct.
So all those other dimensions given by that second surveyor really have no bearing on coverage.
So in your mechanism, you don't take into account the air conditioner, the compressor, or the overhangs in lot coverage?
Even though the regulation with respect to the
Never.
beach, well, never.
Okay, this is like, as I said before, this does not go well.
I got it.
So I really don't want questions. The board can ask Matt questions.
I'm sorry.
That's okay, and we can ask you questions, but I do not want you directing questions to Matt, okay? You would like to talk?
Yeah.
Oh, wait, I just want to make sure.
Go.
Everyone else, you're good now?
That's, I just wanted to clarify,
Okay.
just be clear that
Please,
the
Ryan.
way.
I also just want to remind the board, only because it's tied specifically to this property, that there was a previous appeal brought by the applicant where, with specific regard to the compressor, the air conditioning unit, that was denied. That was asked that's been asked and answered by this board.
Okay, I think the board is done asking questions. Oh, you have more?
Well, we were gonna ask Mr. Decker to just clarify about the overhangs.
Oh, I thought he just did.
He just did.
Okay, and that includes that front overhang as well.
No, he said it doesn't include the overhang. It goes,
Right, he did.
Coverage.
The measurement does not include the overhang.
right. Coverage doesn't include the overhang.
Correct.
Setback include that overhang.
And he said that's a convention.
So no.
Setback. What about the
Okay.
setback?
So yes, just
Yep, you
So
are
that the-
completely right.
the argument made by the applicant that, you know, that front overhang and all the eaves are beyond what they're permitted, it just doesn't hold water. Thank you.
Okay, at this point, I believe the board is done.
No, there's no sense arguing like that.
Yeah,
Just let it
I
go.
think the board's done asking questions. Oh, I'm sorry, Harold, please.
Yes, Madam Chairman, if the board has finished asking questions of the applicant, do we have the period where we ask, is there anyone in favor of or not in
Yes.
favor of?
That's next.
Okay, thank you.
And I don't really
Have
know.
the opportunity to ask
Yes.
Mrs. Davis questions.
Well, Mrs. Davis now has the opportunity to come up because, okay, you're right. No, it's a good idea. So would you like to come up again to the podium? But we're gonna ask you questions. Okay, so go on up.
Madam Chair, I want to make a point, one point. If the board, check me if I'm wrong on this, if the board has specific questions of Miss Davis, she can come back up, but once she relinquished the podium and her statements were answered by the applicant, generally, we don't have follow-up or retort by anyone else in the room, by
I mean,
the
like,
appeal. In other words,
can they come back up? Your question to me is, can they, if she says something that they don't agree with, can the neighbors come back up?
no,
and disagree?
generally what she's doing right now, we don't do in this
Right.
board.
Right, we
So
never
like
done
if
it.
we, right, if we have, it's not, as from my time as chair, it was never permitted. If we have specific questions of them to be answered that are pertinent to anything, we may be able to ask questions.
I don't think, have you asked her questions?
We have not asked her any questions.
I haven't asked her any questions yet.
Yeah.
I think you just have to give the applicant.
They
the
have,
last
okay,
word.
so if we ask her a question and when she's all done, if you wanna take notes, you can come back up and refute something she has said, but only what she says based on our questions, okay?
Sure.
Okay, you ready? Okay, would you like to go first, Harold? Do you have anything?
I have no further
Okay,
questions.
Joe, do you have anything for the Davises?
Just, I think you answered it, but I never asked it. Did their surveyor get permission from you to go on your property?
No, they did not.
Okay, Jane, do you have any questions of the Davises?
Did you have when your fence was installed, did you make sure that the fence installation company had your current survey in hand? So
Yes, I did. Yes, I had them check it, and check it.
Cars are parked on your. And if hypothetically didn't, well, maybe this isn't a question.
No, go
for you.
ahead. I'm
No,
an open book.
If the applicant is saying you don't own it, who owns it?
My mother granted it to me. She deeded it to me. We own it. It's been confirmed.
So
Okay,
that's not
we
even a
own it.
question.
Thank you.
Good, okay, Brian.
I'm good.
Okay, and I don't have anything. Okay, so thank you. Would you like to come up or your client to talk to any of that or?
First of all, I'd like to thank you for your patience and I appreciate all your questions. And I understand that being in a situation like this with a contentious fight between neighbors is not exactly a pleasant role. For more reasons than one. And I think Mr. Schwartz's questions were admirable and direct. What I'd like to say is we did the title search. If her mother did give it to her, her mother didn't have it to give to her. The mistake in the deed happens when it goes into her mother. So there's been no correction, right? She can correct it, but I expected when somebody raised it, it would have been corrected. It hasn't been. So perhaps her lawyers can fix it. I don't know. That's what I thought would happen. We understand the woman who has the property, is 89 years old, living in California. She can be reached by phone. She's still pretty functional. That hasn't happened, right? That's the first problem. The second problem with respect to the interpretation, you're certainly in a spot where you get to interpret these things. I mean, the question you asked of Mr. Decker and like are completely logical, reasonable into the point of the question, but they don't conform to the stuff that you've got to enforce. So I understand where Ms. Hogan was going at the outset. I mean, we do have a venue to go to state court about it, and we will.
Yeah, but I really wanted you to stay with the questions that were
Yeah,
asked.
well,
So that wasn't.
That's it. Okay, that's where we are.
Okay.
But I want to say thank you.
Okay, thank you.
With respect to the comment about the surveyor, I really want to clarify because we had a long and hard discussion with our surveyor
Wait a
about
minute,
this.
what are you talking about now?
Survey.
The survey, that was the question. Did
We
you-
asked about the fence. She asked if she had a surveyor for the fence.
Well, first of all,
So
our
you can only talk to that.
No, you asked if the surveyor was on my property, on her property and also.
No, not
Joe
just now.
Oh, well, I did.
You
Joe
did,
did.
You
okay,
did, I'm
please go ahead.
sorry. So first of all, if you look at the survey, my surveyor first told me, and we had a long discussion, that he wasn't gonna go on the property. But in fact, I was told that Neil Jane arrived at the site and they had discussions and they then went onto the site together with permission from the Davises. So it wasn't, he didn't do any work on, that's why he couldn't get measurements on other things, He only got measurements of things that he could get without going on the property. That's why we don't have the elevation of the grade. We couldn't get that. So, he was very clear about that. We were very clear that we didn't want that to happen. So that's the first thing. And you can see there, right there on the drawing, that it is, the fence is, well, you can't see the fence, but you can see, it turns out that the fence is about 50% on our property, according to our surveyor, and we had him check it multiple times. And the problem is, in terms of me parking, I'm very careful to park. When I finish, I go around the car to make sure that the mailbox is accessible, because I can't go into mine, because if I go in my driveway, the fence goes so close to the road, which you can see, I can't see. And in one of the pictures with respect to the Jeep, he practically hit somebody because he couldn't see. So I'm just telling you,
No, just please let her finish. Please.
All right, and so I have to say that we've tried to, I mean, we don't step on their property. We asked our surveyor not to the extent he could survey something without doing that. They did that, but they did not step on the property. And when I was there, they did not. And I'm very, very sensitive to that issue.
Okay. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Okay, so everyone has asked questions. Okay, so now, normally, we say, is anyone here? Okay, so is anyone online or in the room here for this application to speak in favor of the reversal of the zoning enforcement officer's decision? Okay, seeing none and hearing none. Is there anyone here against the application to reverse the zoning officer's decision? Okay, so I would believe you have another chance to stand up and just.
No.
Oh, no, what?
They've already been heard.
Okay,
Third party.
okay. Lucky there's so many people here to tell me what I'm doing wrong.
You're not doing anything wrong.
It's
Not
okay.
doing it all.
Okay, sorry, I've just never done this before. Okay, so now we are going to close this public hearing. Okay. Does anyone need a break? Did you say yes? Go ahead. Go ahead.
You can go anytime you want, brother.
Does anyone want to take a break, or does everyone just want to continue on?
Plow through.
Okay, so since we already did the last two, we're going to now vote and discuss, well, we're gonna, sorry. We're going to discuss on continued docket 8297 Pine Creek, map 234, parcel 258A, petition of Deborah Judelson to reverse or modify decision of the zoning administration premises BD zone. I need a motion to approve.
So moved.
And that's Brian. I need a second.
Jane seconds.
That's Jane seconds. Discussion.
I'll go last.
I just want to, I just start, but our role here is not to enforce anything. Our role here is to decide whether to be variances or not variances. That's it. Have to accept legal paperwork as it comes to us, whether it's a signed and stamped legal survey by a licensed professional. We have to assume that it's correct and you know, it's passed through the hands of various departments in town. So I don't think we have any cause to doubt it.
Yeah, and I will just correct you a little bit. Our job is, though, to have people come to us to reverse zoning enforcement officer's decisions.
Right, but we don't.
All the rest of it. I just want to make sure that that is our role, and when people want to do that, they do come to us. Okay, thank you, Jane.
That's fine.
Joe?
As I said once before in a different appeal, the zoning enforcement officer was presented with appropriate documents. It's not our determination as to whether they're inappropriate or not. By all indications, a licensed surveyor made a representation about the property that conforms with the variances that we approved. And there may be further litigation on this, but from what I can see, there's no, the certificate of zoning compliance was properly issued based on the information available.
Harry, do you want to talk or, I mean, Harold, sorry. Do you want to talk at all?
No.
Okay. Brian?
Um,
You're good?
I'm in agreement with Jane and Joe. Please, the world don't fall off its axis. To our position as a board, we do not issue certificate. We do not, it's not really in our, it's not in our purview to question the certificate or the certification of those submitting documentation. Believe that it was issued in good faith. I don't believe that the applicant is in use or practice violating the variance provided by the board. That's it.
Okay.
Let's say one last thing.
Yes.
It's not just the zoning department. We've had engineering, we've had building department, we've had, other town departments, and everything's been fine. So there's nothing unique about this particular variance approval or certificate of zoning.
Okay. Okay, are we ready to vote? So remember, they are here to ask us to reverse or modify a decision. So if you vote no, you do not want to reverse the decision. You vote yes, you want to reverse the decision, okay? All right, Harold?
I vote to deny the appeal. I hope that the Juttlesons enjoy their home when they moved in, when they decide to move into it.
Okay, Brian?
No.
No.
I'm a no.
And I'm also a no. Opposed.
Gavelled it closed.